worrying you about your health? Are you looking at changes or?
No, I just always have been like that.
Mm-hmm.
Always super conscious about my health, and
Okay.
I think initially it was a self-protection mechanism.
Yeah.
Because moving around school to school, I was always the new kid on the block, and kids would come round in groups and, you know, all that sort of stuff. And so I thought it might be a good idea to learn how to protect myself. And then I just got the bug, and, you know, it's that adrenaline rush. I guess we all need some form of drug.
Yeah.
And so as long as it's good drugs, then I'm okay with it.
Absolutely. It sounds very an important thing, doesn't it, to be taking care of yourself. It sounds like you're saying then, so from a young age, because of what you were living through and going through, there was a protection element. So what about building strength and muscle?
Yeah.
But then it's become something quite important and something quite healthy.
Yes.
As well. But you can recognise it started from the place that I need to look physically strong.
Yeah.
Protect myself.
Yeah, well, be physically strong, not necessarily look it, but be it, so you can, you know, protect yourself. And then, of course, I travelled all over the world, and it's always very, very handy if you can protect yourself and you're confident. And so, yeah, I've always pursued those sort of things: boxing, full contact karate, and fitness.
Why don't we try something here where we connect to a resource, we connect to something positive. So, and this can give us a good opportunity to try either with eye movements or with tapping, just connecting to a moment that captures some of what you're describing here. Does that feel okay? And then this will only take a few moments, and then we can build into what you maybe want to think about today. So why don't we try this then? So maybe just any one of those moments, like you said, different things you do that you enjoy, whether it be cycling, the gym, boxing, whatever it is, walking. Maybe just connect to one of those, see if you can bring up, I know sometimes imagery is there, sometimes it's harder, just see if you can connect to anything in your mind that just captures that moment where you feel good. Notice what that feels like in your body as you're doing that, and just let me know if you can do that. You can either close your eyes or keep them open. I know you said sometimes you might go off if you close your eyes. So if it's easier to keep your eyes open, just gaze softly. And just see if you can bring up as much detail as you can. Let me know kind of what the image is if you create it, and what we're going to connect to.
Yeah, no images, but a feeling like now. I'm throbbing, buzzing all over, because I had to cycle very fast and hard. One of the hardest cycles I've ever done in recent times, to the dentist because time crept up on me and I was late. And so it was a really hard cycle with every single push of the pedals around, knowing that is immensely important because I am going to get there in the nick of time. And I thought the appointment was for 10 o'clock when it was for 10 past, and I got there bang on 10 past.
Okay.
Yeah, and so this intuition that I'm always with, my intuition told me, if you keep going at this rate without giving up, you'll meet the appointment. And so then that goes back to my whole history in full contact karate fighting. You have the internal dialogue, the spirit, and it tells you to keep that pressure on, to keep your opponent under pressure.
So I'm going to pause you a moment just so that we can just stay with connecting to this if we can.
Without going into a dialogue,
without going into
stories.
Too much, but if we just, because this is just a moment of grabbing, just a moment to connect to this. So it's hard to get imagery, but you can kind of get that sense of being on the bike, being outdoors. You can add in as much sensory detail as you want, and when we're resourcing, you can have a blend of what the reality was, what the conditions actually were when you were cycling, but also you can tweak it a bit with your imagination, so you can add in actually there were less cars on the road, it was sunny, whatever you want to do, just to really connect to this moment feeling good. And maybe just notice what quality it is that you want to tap into.
Yes, it's a very good point, and it takes me back to my childhood. I think I've told you about this earlier. You see how I'm feeling, how exercise makes me feel. It puts me in the perfect human condition. When I'm pushing my body to the absolute maximum, I enter into a variety of spiritual cosmic consciousness. When the body is absolutely flushed with endorphins, norepinephrine, serotonin, whatever's going on in the body, it feels absolutely ecstatic. And so that's the drug, you see. We're all drug addicts to some level. Some prefer the easy way, caffeine and other stimulants, but I like it the hard way because I like to earn my stimulants. And so that's really important. But going back to when I was leaving the children's home, and the father was refurbishing our family home, and it was about 3 or 4 miles away round a bendy country road, and we wouldn't get dropped off and we wouldn't get picked up. My elder brother was 10 and I was 8, and we would have to walk around this bendy country road, very dangerous, with no footpaths at that time. And so we often reflected back on that, what was going on there, you know. Wasn't the dark ages. So we'd show up at the old man's house, and sometimes he'd be expecting us, sometimes he'd be surprised. But the feeling that I had was absolutely exhilarating. It was a fine day, spring day, and I was walking with a mission, going to be repatriated with the Father, the only rock that I had to cling to. And so that experience I experienced when I was speaking about going under self-hypnosis with Dr. Phil. He, in the book, regressed the reader to the happiest day, and all of a sudden I was there, and it was absolutely unbelievable. And I could smell the springtime, I could see the birds and the butterflies and all that. And then I said to myself, well, that's why I've travelled all my life. I've always been happy with a holder on my shoulder and travelling for new adventures, not knowing where I'm going, why I'm going. I'm just going to see what happens.
So, I'm just going to bring us back to just this. So, what might be something that I'm just noticing is this pull to other times, other stories, other places, which again is all helpful information, but it sort of takes us away a little bit just from staying with the here and the now.
Right.
So if I just keep bringing us back to this for a moment.
So as far as you're concerned, aren't the history and the stories important to what you are looking for?
In this one moment of trying to connect to something, we're just seeing if we can bring together in this moment elements of whatever imagery or description we can have, how it feels as we connect to that, what thoughts go with that, and that's all we're trying to do is keep connecting to. It's almost like we're almost asking, aren't we, how parts can help support an internal boundary between where material can go. Because I suppose, whilst it's all very interesting, we almost sort of need to keep working on this internal checking in so that we can sort of stay with what's coming up. Because of course you've created such curiosity in your mind, it could always go off.
Yeah, so to be present, I can speak precisely about what I'm feeling presently, if that's what you're looking for.
So if we go back to what we were going to work with, we're just trying to capture moments where we can connect to an image. So when you were talking about exercise, I was thinking this seems a good one to do. So let's just think about what's the one quality you were talking about, your endorphins, feeling ecstatic. So when you're exercising, what do you feel? Alive? Do you feel powerful? Do you feel confident? Are there any of those things that we can just connect to just now?
All those things. closer to God in a respect, because I've had lots of very powerful, moving experiences when I've been in this ecstatic state, because you go into a higher ecstatic state when you're at that level of consciousness.
So we've got ecstatic, alive, close to God and confident. There's some of the kind of qualities inside that you're connected to.
And this is really important, because I've been thinking about this a lot, how I have this, I think I've got some sort of subliminal anger and resentment to anything that doesn't seek out perfection. If people want to abuse themselves and destroy themselves and all this sort of thing, I just find that shocking, and I don't have any sympathy for that. I don't have any compassion. I scrutinise these words, I dissect the words, and I think they're meaningless. I think love as a concept is a meaningless concept, because when you look for the essence of it, it doesn't take you anywhere.
Can I just pause a minute, because again,
Yeah.
we've just sort of gone into something else,
Yeah.
which might be important, but let's just check inside if we can just come back to what
Mhm.
maybe we're going to go do just now,
Yeah.
and then we can check in the focus of where you want to go today,
Yeah.
and remind us of where we got to at the end of last time. So just for a moment, just see if it's okay inside to just kind of almost be guided for a moment into this resourcing, okay? All we're going to do is see if we can create a moment where you connect inwardly a little bit more to something that feels either quite positive or neutral or good.
Mm-hmm.
So you're noticing that exhilaration, the ecstatic feelings you get when you're cycling, especially cycling fast today. There's that sense of that if I keep going, I'll get there. And as you're in this moment of cycling along, you feel alive and close to God and confident. As you're just connecting to this moment, this time where you feel good, just notice again, and this is where I mean you can add some elements. What would it be like, around you? So the temperature, the colours, just a little bit of description around that, some of the sensory elements. What does it feel like?
Bright and sunny.
Okay. Anything else in terms of sounds, taste, touch, anything else that you're noticing?
Springtime, summertime.
Yeah. Quite warm.
Yeah.
Okay. Any sounds around you?
Nature.
Okay. And again, like we said, we can tweak the reality with a little bit of what you'd like to zone into a bit more. So in terms of the nature, can you see the trees? Can you hear the birds? Can you...
Yeah, trees, birds, green, lush, Britain.
Okay. Lovely. So, just notice that. If you can, just notice as you let yourself get closer and closer to this description, any imagery if anything comes up, just that idea of you being on the bike, just see if there's somewhere within, in or around your body that you can feel some of this connection just now. If there is, let me know.
Yes.
Why do you notice this as you connect to this idea, this image?
Still buzzing.
Why do you notice that?
All over the body.
Okay.
Just the aliveness of the body.
Brilliant.
Feeling every single... I'm always speaking to people given the opportunity. Where's your consciousness? I ask them where their consciousness is. Invariably they don't know where their consciousness is because they're unconscious. But I'm so conscious, and I feel every single muscle in my body when I'm walking. I feel everything. I feel the wind push.
Just now you can feel it all in your body.
Yeah. The energy, the vital.
So what I'd like to try and do now, we'll try the eye movements first. As you try and just stay connected to everything there, that imagery, the body, everything, I'm going to just follow slowly with your eyes. I'm going to do this briefly. Just let yourself notice that imagery. Notice those feelings in the body. And any words or thoughts that go with that, such as I'm alive, or I can get there, keep going, anything that comes up. Okay, just pause, take a breath, and really let it go. And then just notice anything at all that's just coming up just briefly now, anything at all. touching. Just notice anything at all. It might be very small, might be subtle. Anything at all that you're noticing.
Just the buzz in my body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that feel okay? Does that feel positive?
It feels great.
So just notice that feeling again in your body and just go with that. If you can, just follow the eye movements again. Well done. Do this briefly. Okay, just take a breath. Just let it go. Again, just notice anything at all that might show up, whether it be the body, a word, a thought, a feeling, an image, anything at all.
Nothing.
And how does that feel in your body?
Peaceful.
Okay. So, we'll only do that briefly. That's a little bit of an example, Aaron, of just trying to connect, tap in, using again the sort of that crossing over the hemisphere to just bring things together. So EMDR is about separating things that got blended, that got kind of linked together. So if we think a lot about the meaning of trauma, and of course when trauma happens when we're very young, things get sometimes blended together without us knowing.
Yeah.
So EMDR helps to separate out things that have been blended, but also bring things together that, again, because of trauma, get separated because it's too much at the time. It can bring things together in a helpful way.
Right.
So we do a mixture of all these things, and we're doing eye movements and things like that. But this, when we're resourcing, it's just a way of trying to bring in all those different elements together just to connect to that one moment. Not saying you have to always walk around feeling that, but we grab them when we can.
To come back to that moment.
So yeah, so if we keep building internally, that we can just connect to these moments, and we might just keep grabbing them when we can. Sometimes there might be a point of realisation or knowing, and we might say, let's just make that feel a little bit stronger inside.
Right.
So we just grab bits where we can, and then of course when we get ready to it, we do slightly faster eye movements as we work through things that are more tricky, things that have maybe been stuck.
Right.
And then we're just kind of working through them.
Okay.
So just noticing that then, where we just did some just very slow sets of eye movements, what was that like for you just then?
Well, of course, it reminded me of my hypnotherapy course. To calm the mind, to focus on something particular, and to aid concentration and to eradicate the random thoughts, you know. That's the whole premise of hypnotherapy.
So it reminded you of that, and was that okay for you?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and what we will do, whether that be today or another time, when we next grab a moment to connect to, we'll try tapping. So there's different ways that we can do different types. So, but with the eye movements today, that felt okay?
Yeah.
Okay, lovely.
And there'll probably be a different result when you speak about the other things, because that's the best circumstance that I can recall, and I live from that. I embrace that. The other bit, which was the other link to the Dr. Phil, was the most horrendous experience you've ever had in your life. So going back to experience that, well, that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, and we'll do that when it feels ready inside for the system, going to some of those moments. I mean, at the end of last session, we did say, I wonder what it would be like to start generating a bit of a list of moments, sort of targets almost, for us to start working through with the processing around that lack of trust in others, you know, these different things in life that have happened. Because that seems to come up a lot, doesn't it, this kind of trust in people.
Yeah, there's trust and disappointment, and I look at the human race, and I think, you know, there is excellence, but it's very far and few between. And I look around and I see how people don't care about anything. They're just automaton, and I'm bewildered by that, you know.
Yeah. So, and I think so you've got, on the one hand, haven't you, this frustration with people.
Yeah.
Not caring, not seeking perfection, like you're just saying. And then I think some of what you said the last time or the time before were almost some of like what you wanted to work towards was about seeking more patience, less hypervigilance, being less dismissive, more accepting of
Yeah,
others.
because it's not really like I want to do that.
Right.
It's the only way.
Uh-huh.
Because you know, if you have been spiritually awakened or spiritually enlightened, and you know that you're not the body, and there's no physical reality here, and you're pure spirit, and all that metaphysical stuff, well, it is very difficult to play the game. You know, there's a saying: what you do before enlightenment, you chop wood and carry water. What you do after enlightenment, you chop wood and carry water. There's nothing you can do, you have an earth experience. And so, you know, I came away from that. I retreated from that. I retreated from the disappointment and from the negative energy and the apathy and all that is wrong about human life. And I found solace in my own centre. And I found a God. Not the biblical God, cosmic God. Cosmic God consciousness, because there is spirit there, that there is something absolutely powerful that you can get in touch with. And what reiterates this beautiful sunny day is that on beautiful sunny days there's been occasions when I've been exercising and I've entered into what's called samadhi. And samadhi is when the egoic mind completely dissolves and you are in a world with no judgment at all, and there is something there that tells you, feels like it loves you and everything is for you. And so the conclusion is, obviously, it's the ego which destroys all that. So spiritual people try their best to get outside of the ego, but the matrix brings you into the ego, because you can't be this spiritual being walking on air and, you know, being ecstatic at life, because the ego and society brings you back down again.
So what does this part, because I think this is the part we often hear, isn't it? The part that's quite rooted, grounded in things as they are.
Mm.
And this is the part that might be a little bit wary of what might come up in the therapeutic process.
Right.
This is the part, isn't it? It sounds like that kind of wants to educate, kind of share, intellectualise, you know, share the theories, share what you've learned, share what's important to you, and potentially your fears of. I think we once considered if this part was worried about losing it. You know, that's what you were wondering about, the subjective nature of your reading.
Yeah.
Is there? Because you were saying, on the one hand, you get the same messages in different forms.
Yeah.
So there's potentially this fear, isn't there? If we go into sort of a different way of trying to sit with some of this stuff or explore some of this stuff, is there a fear that we will lose? Is that what this part's worried about?
Maybe.
Just check in if there is that worry there for that part, and if there's a way we can just work with that for a moment.
Yeah, I once watched a video about some young guy who had prefrontal epilepsy, and when he had these episodes, he was in this kingdom of God, absolutely ecstatic, and he would just be just spontaneous in joy and tears and all this sort of thing. And the program was about talking to him and his father about having electric shock treatment to prevent that stuff from happening. And he says, no way, no way, no way. It's the most beautiful and amazing thing you could ever imagine. And, you know, these are these moments of God consciousness and their religious experiences. And you can read about these. And then scientists tell people that it's a malfunction with the brain because they're not functioning within society. Well, you know, people like Albert Einstein says, you know, the only person, something along the lines that, you know, it's no indication of I don't know, perfection or beauty or whatever, to be fitting in with a sick society. you know, this is destruction. This whole thing.
So just see if you, Aaron, connect this part of you.
So there's energy there. There's a feeling there again.
See if
Very
you can
powerful
connect
energy.
to that energy and let that part know you can really hear the concerns of that part. Really hear deep concerns that somehow, perhaps therapy, perhaps this process is going to do something like what that ECT, that example, was going to do. Really just see if you can connect to this part inside and let them know you hear them, you understand their concerns. And just see if that part can feel your connection right now and let me know what that's like.
It's very powerful. Very powerful.
Does it want to share some more of their concerns to you? Does it feel your connection, Aaron? Does it feel some of your energy now in this room being with that part?
Well, that part is the real me. It's the real essence of me. It's the realization that we're not the physical body.
Okay. So what does... I'm going to use the word part for now just because... so I don't get muddled.
Yeah.
But I can hear what you're saying, this is you. So what does that part... See if you can stay a little bit more with what do they fear then about this? What do they think would happen in therapy that would be harmful to you, your system?
There's no discernible agency that desires anything. Spirit is spirit, and spirit is bliss, heaven, that sort of thing, how it's always described. There is a place we find, and when we find that, it's very, very difficult to let go. And so if I was to look for some entity that's preventing that, I can't find one discernibly. It's my fundamental state now. The ego has been greatly diminished, and that's why I've been reclusive for the past 16 years.
So let's just see, and again, I hope it's okay just to jump in every now and again, just to try and, because I know this part has so much information that it could easily kind of go into lots of important avenues. So if we just check in with what I understand of bringing you into therapy is that there's lots about your life, your way of being, your spiritual connection and energy that you love, you embrace, you want to remain. And yet there's these nuggets of dissatisfaction in relationships that you would like to ease up on. You'd like a little bit more room inside to be with others, being less perfect.
Yeah.
And so there is a slight pull to looking at exploring and maybe some changes.
Yeah.
But what we're maybe noticing is there being some resistance to looking at things in a different way, because a great part of you loves things as they are.
Yeah.
And we don't have to do anything. It's really important that that part hears. Therapy is a choice. And we don't do anything out of consent or out of permission with the system. So it's saying, if we were to work with this spiritual energy, with you, with this part, how might we find enough negotiation to help those other parts inside that want something slightly different? Is there a way we can do that?
trying to seek which agency would be wanting to do that.
So it's like that camera lens, isn't it? Maybe zoning out a bit. You might be very in a part that has certain feelings, attitudes, thoughts, energy. You slightly get some breathing space around. Take out that zoom lens of the camera and just open up a bit and just check in what else is there. It's less known, less dominant.
Yes, there's wow. I don't think I've ever been stuck for something to say for so long.
Oh, that's interesting, Aaron. But just notice actually what that's like. Maybe just be really thankful inside that there's a little bit of space. That it's okay.
See, there's a default persona, and the default persona is, it plays parts. It doesn't appear to take the world seriously. It plays parts. It mocks, and it's very much like the jester. I'm very much like the jester, fooling around and jesting around in a make-believe world.
Which part's saying this, do you think, Aaron?
It feels like the default part of the ego. It's kind of like the bit that says, it's all bollocks anyway.
Well, everything.
Yeah.
So what, just gently get curious about this part in terms of why it's showing up now. What's this part bringing to this discussion right now? What do they want us to think about or notice?
Well, there's a part of me that knows that I would get along exponentially if I could step outside of the chains. I think the chains, the bondage of my kind of like ivory tower.
Okay.
Because there's a due to the experience that I've had and the acquisition of knowledge and all that, and the openness and expansiveness of consciousness, that part looks around and it mocks and it looks at the fool.
So in some ways the spiritual part might mock and...
It may be.
Yeah.
Because the spiritual one is the enlightened one.
Yeah.
But the ego has to live this existence.
Yes.
And so the ego is the thing that enables us to have a human experience.
Yeah.
And if I could soften that and come back into the fold, so to speak, and be more, I can't even say it really, compassion.
Yeah.
Because the intellectual, the analytical facet of me destroys those things.
It destroys moments of compassion.
It destroys compassion, destroys love. It destroys everything.
Okay.
It takes everything down to nothing. It dismantles everything, because if we look for what compassion is, it's just an idea that people fantasize about.
Well, I wonder if this is the analytical part talking to us right now, telling us their view on it.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Just notice you're doing really well right now, Aaron, because I feel like we're getting some key parts in this negotiation of therapy around sort of the space right now.
Yeah.
I think what we were hearing just then was, and I suppose I was wondering, you were saying something of perhaps there's something of the spiritual part, the enlightened part, slightly mocking the fools, people. And then there's maybe a part within, that's like ego part within, that might also feel mocked by the spiritual part.
Yes.
That might also find it harder to speak up when the spiritual part's so dominant. That's kind of noticing that this struggle, but we've got to live in this world, how do we do this?
Yeah.
And then this analytical part that also came in as you were starting to touch upon compassion and love, equally then put it down and reduced it.
Yeah.
So these feel like really important parts, don't they, that keep coming up as we talk about these things. Just check in, take a moment to just be with some of that, just notice the landscape, notice how it all sits inside and in all around you, and just check in with your system what this is like as we just gently get to know what's going on for you.
So there's inner forces which compromise one another, and you see the paradoxical thing about it. When I engage with people in any situation, there's the very nice chap, which is, it feels real. It feels real. That one feels real to me.
Okay.
And I'm not judging. I'm open and engaging, and I actually enjoy that thing. But then this intellectual thing goes, what a fool he was. Look at him. Look how he's destroyed his body. Look, when you said this to him, he couldn't even respond to that. He had no idea what you're speaking about.
Okay.
And so these two characters, the I don't know, I've got to define this one. The one that's free and engaged with everybody and makes everybody laugh, and they all think that Aaron's a jolly nice chap. But then this other part, it takes everything away.
Yeah. An air of that kind of critic and judgmental sort of part.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, is that the same as the spiritual part? Is it like a facet of the spiritual part? Because these people are not enlightened to that part?
I don't think it can pertain to the spirit. It's a facet of the ego. The ego is multifaceted, and there's I often say that we are myriad, we are legion, because there's very many facets of what people would call me. There's no me, there's just a multifaceted
and that's what we're kind of dabbling with, isn't it? That's what we're kind of getting to know, isn't it? These different facets.
Yeah.
These different parts.
And I always say that I'm like a diamond, and I just turn a facet to any given situation, and there's myriad facets. I can just keep turning the diamond. There's nothing set in here.
So if we just pause a moment, you're doing really well, and thank you for letting me just keep coming back to things. I know some parts have agreed to this, some parts might not like me doing this. But I'm just staying with this part seems quite important, the one that there's something that you're noticing that feels quite enjoyable in some of these interactions. And then quite quickly this critical part, judgmental part, comes in and takes it all away.
Yeah.
So just see if you can get a sense of that part and what you know about that part. Why is that part doing that? What does that part think it needs to do to help you?
It's the part that keeps me insular. It's the part that keeps me away from social environment.
To do that.
I suppose it stems from a protection mechanism,
Okay.
but I think it's run its course now. I just think it's habit, you know.
Okay. So just notice, just for a moment, just notice then that at the moment this part comes in with criticisms of others, and it started with a form of protection. Just notice what it's like to know this about this part. Is this part around as we're talking about it? Can it hear some of this? Does it agree with it? What's it like for this part to hear this?
Yeah, it knows. It knows.
Does it agree with these ideas that it's there to protect you and...
I don't think I need protecting. I think it's just an old program, you know.
Okay. But just check in for a moment. There might be another part that knows this. Just check in with the part that does this quite automatically. It sounds like when you're in relationships with people or just engaging with people, this part jumps in. Just really get a sense of that part. As you look at that part, how do you feel towards that part?
That part always goes, you know, you're wasting your time, right? It's all going to end in tears. They're going to do something.
Okay.
That's the human nature. You know, you've been around for so long, you know it by now. What are you wasting your time for? It's only a matter of time. Do you want to keep going through that all the time?
Right. So just, that's really helpful, Aaron. So this part is saying something of, these people will hurt you, something will happen, it's inevitable.
It will always end up disappointing.
Okay. So just as you hear that from this part, what do you feel towards this part as they're sharing that?
So, this part, it's kind of like the know-it-all friend or parent, I suppose. Always just giving you this advice. And it's always negative, you know.
Mm.
My father had a very pessimistic personality.
Right.
And every time I was positive, because I have a positive disposition, he would always find something to destroy it.
Okay. Just notice that. So something of what's going on internally, something of what was known relationally.
And I suppose that's maybe something spiritual, genetic. None of us wanted to be like him, you know. We always felt that he was like a disease. Even though he was a good man, in the later years he became diseased.
Right.
And he retreated into reclusion.
Right.
And he couldn't find any joy, and that's why he killed himself.
Right. Is that what happened to your dad?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry to hear that, Aaron. So just notice what you're sharing, what this part is bringing just now. This part that might say to you, might try and protect you by saying it'll end in tears, it'll be disappointing, takes away some of the goodness, some of the enjoyment, but it's taking us back, it's taking you back to a time, isn't it, where you have memories of Dad being similar. Just check in inside, because we're also we've got about 10 minutes just so that I don't want to leave us fully in something, just so we have that awareness as well of the time, but just check in with the system. How is the system doing as you make some of these connections, as you go inwards and get to know these parts? Is it still okay inside? Is there any part finding any of this tricky or too much?
No.
So part that does this, that comes in and does the bit of the judgment, bit of the critic, what does it need us to know? What's anything else that it would like to share with us through images, through memories, through words? If we were to engage in some of this work, anything else the part needs us to know, be wary of?
The part that closes relationships down.
Yeah, I guess we're just thinking with this part just now, aren't we?
So that part, it could be a genetic disposition, because my siblings are very dissimilar. I think it has a lot to do with our upbringing. We're all tainted and disappointed in life. And our old man, he taught us that people are always going to let you down and don't trust anybody. Mm. And it all served us, it seemed to serve us, you know, but we're all insular, we're all single.
So it's interesting, isn't it, the idea of it being a genetic disposition.
Genetics or programming, or circumstances, or an accumulation of all three.
And I wonder what that part, because remember we said at the very start, and it's useful reminding parts because not all parts hear this, that we're not out to get rid of parts. We're out to work with them and see what they want to let go of, what weighs them down, but what do they want to keep hold of. So for this part in particular, I wonder if there's something of being, you know, checking out if you can trust people is really important.
Checking out what, sorry?
If you can trust people. There's still an element that's always going to be important to you with what you've been through in life, your family experiences, where you're going to have to take time to trust people. You know, maybe that's important.
Yeah, I think it's a logical dilemma, because people invariably, they can't be trusted. Very few people will stand by their word and do the honourable thing. It's human nature that they are going to fail themselves. They fail themselves miserably. So why would they not fail you? And that's been my experience. Being a psychoanalytical person, people, they're just failures. How many people are really honourable and honest and steadfast in relationships? I don't know. You know, Marcus Aurelius, you know, one of the Roman emperors. I mean, he's renowned for having this sort of level of very, very rare humanism. That's why he's held in such high regard. But you look for it in the reality, you can't find it. So it's not that person, that thing that's judging is wrong. It's perfectly right.
Yeah.
It's the bit that needs to be more accepting that that's just the way it is.
So absolutely, really let that part know. You absolutely get why they've got to the place they have with trust. You know, where it comes from, what it links to, that it's important going forwards. You know, absolutely. Let that part know you get that. I wonder if there is something here linked to what I was saying at the start about the what gets blended, what gets put together. And I wonder if this part, you know, it's already kind of let us know it has some childhood memories of Dad. So this in some ways might be quite a young part. And maybe through what you have shared bits of, Aaron, in the short time we've known each other, is the huge mistrust, the huge pain and trauma and suffering that went with the mistrust within important relationships in your life. And those early relationships are the sort of map of relationships we take in, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if absolutely that then makes, like you're saying, when humans do make errors, inevitably, it gets all scooped together as this huge mistrust.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder what this part would consider about, well, if we could do some of these eye movements, work through some of these painful moments, and so we can heal what we can of the past, so that then the day-to-day failings of people can be treated as such, with some of that acceptance and understanding that you're noticing you'd like to have.
Mm-hmm.
But it's almost hard to do that whilst those huge hurts of the past still remain open.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if that's something of a way we could work together, if that would make sense to that part.
Yeah, we're open to that.
But absolutely makes complete sense that you're not going to just say, I'm going to trust everybody. That absolutely sounds important to keep hold of that. How, you know, we have to earn this trust, we have to...
I just wonder, I suppose we're wondering, the assessor, the analytical part, is kind of like, what are you going to replace me with then?
Who's saying that, sorry? Which
The
part?
analytical one.
Okay.
What are you going to replace me with? You think you can replace me? Are you serious?
Okay. Well, brilliant. Thank you to that part for coming up. I think really glad that part's showing up just now and asked a really important question. So why don't we take note of that question and come back to it, because obviously we haven't really given time to that part today, have we? We have in the past, but right now we were noticing the critic part, and before that the spiritual part. So I'm just aware of the time and everything. I'm going to make a note that we return to that question of that part, Aaron, Anna's question. So that kind of, you know, what are you going to do with me, and you're not going to get rid of me, and absolutely come back to that. And in the meantime, absolutely say we're not trying to get rid of it.
Yeah,
Okay.
that part just seems to start reality.
Yeah.
And it's the part that says, listen, your mother, she left 4 babies. She didn't care about you. And so if your mother could do that, you think other people are not going to do that?
Yeah.
And so that was a big
then,
one.
Isn't it really linked?
That was a big one.
To what we've just been talking about. So thank you so much for that. That's really helpful. Absolutely, that's part of the old hurts and pains, isn't it? What we're just noticing. Yeah, that makes so much sense. Yeah. Thank you for that, Aaron.
And that was reiterated by the father. Everybody's going to let you down.
Yeah.
And I think he was hurt as well. He was devastated by it.
Yeah.
He was on the point of suicide himself. He was driving recklessly around the country. He was just doing crazy stuff with the turmoil of what happened to him.
Absolutely.
When the woman he had married and once loved, and there was a woman, a mother of his children, takes her life to tell him, serve you right, or punish him. My God.
Well, if we can, at some point when it's right, explore some of that. You know, go with what you were just sharing then, Aaron, and open up some of that, what you believe at that time, what you learned from them doing that, what messages it offered to yourself, to Dad. You know, I think that's stuff we need to give time to. Just really aware we'll have to end there for today, Aaron.
Yeah.
Just check in with internally, just see if we can just thank every part inside. Just give them something of what they would need right now to just kind of appreciate them, say thank you for what they've shared. It's all been really linked and useful. Because of obviously the delay of our session last week to this week, we have got only a week to wait, so we can pick up on this.
Yeah.
And just check in with what your parts and you need to do in between to, I guess up to now we haven't left so abruptly at the end, and maybe that's something we need to consider in each session. How do we wrap it up a bit more softly before the end? So it's not such a sharp going back out there after we've talked about this stuff.
Well, I've thought about these things forever, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. You've done really well. Really appreciate, Aaron, you letting me jump in, slow it down, redirect us. Feel like you were really able to bring some energy to your parts today and bring some connection to those parts today. So thank you for that. And is that okay that we pick up next time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see, there's a constant theme with my everyday thing, that knowing that I need to make that transition, knowing that this thing inside is what's doing this thing, it's the preventative, it's keeping everything contained, and I know I need to escape that, and so broaching that today is the beginning.
Absolutely, and thank you to that part, because what you've learned over the years, the outlet you have on life is obviously wonderful, and it's not about stopping that or changing that. We're looking at what parts work on over time to the expense and cost of other parts. So that's all we're trying to do, is get your system on board and negotiating and working together. So really appreciate that part of letting us just explore a bit more about that.
Brilliant.
Okay. So thanks, Aaron. Good to see you today.
Likewise.
Okay, next week I've just looked at your time and I've forgotten already. I think it's 9:30, isn't it?
Yeah, on the Thursday, was it 22nd?
22nd, 9:30 to 11, the hour and a half next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, it's got to be shorter.